All right, in our lesson this morning, we talked a little bit about angels. We've been discussing angels a little bit over the last couple of weeks in some of our different classes. And Tuesday, we was asked a question about what angels look like, and we gave very quickly what the Bible has to say or not to say about that. And so I thought, well, this might be a good time to answer a couple of questions. And, the question that we looked at this morning and the question we looked at here tonight might be for some just a reminder, but for others it could be what the Bible has to say about the particular subject. Now, this morning we found out where they came from, didn't we? And we found out that just like you and I, that they were created beings, created by God through Christ. And so they came from God. They were created by God. And that is perhaps the most asked question about angels. Just where did they come from? What can you tell us about them? And perhaps the second most asked question is, well, what in the world do angels do? What do they do? What is their purpose? What is their function? Well, what do angels do? If I threw it out to you here tonight, and I'm throwing it out to you here tonight, what do angels do?
Messengers.
Okay, they're messengers. Okay. Hebrews 1, they're what? Ministering spirits. And so they minister, they serve. What else do angels do? Well, there's all kind of answers to that question. For one thing, and I thought you would probably think of it, Mr. Cherubone. That's a joke for our Tuesday class. He kept calling the cherubim cherubones all through class there Tuesday, and I finally had to stop him and tell him maybe you better glue those things in a little bit more because it's not cherubone, it's cherubim. So what do the cherubim do? Well, Dave will be able to point out to us that the cherubim, they were placed at the east of the Garden of Eden. We read about that in Genesis, the 3rd chapter, in verses 23 and 24. Now, they were placed there for what purpose? Okay, they were going to guard. What were they guarding? They were guarding the tree of life. And so they were placed there, these angelic beings were placed there to guard the tree of life, and to guard it from who? Man. So that man could not go and eat of the tree and thus live forever. We go to the book of Revelation. In Revelation, the 21st chapter, I believe it is, in Revelation chapter 21, we have John in his vision, if you will, of the holy city. And in that vision, he sees 12 gates. And what does he see at each of those gates? He sees angels at each of those gates. That's Revelation 21. And notice what we're told in 12 and 13. And had a great wall. Now this is his vision of the holy city. Had a great wall and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and the names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. And so he saw 12 gates, 3 on the east, 3 on the north, 3 on the south, 3 on the west, as we're told in verse 13, and he saw angels standing there. Now, why do you think they were there? Okay, guard. We're not really told, but it certainly kind of indicates to us that they were there to guard those gates in some way. And so that kind of leads us to the understanding that perhaps the holy city is going to be a safe city.
A lot of terminology used to describe angels, the term host is a military term.
Yes. Yep. Just like we talked about this morning.
It goes back to them being soldiers and the military formation.
Exactly right. Just like we talked about this morning, the term host means army or multitude, and so they are soldiers in nature. And so they guard. Well, Let's go back to this idea about soldiers. Do they wage war? Have they waged war? The answer to that question is yes. They have waged war. Turn back, we're still in the book of Revelation. Just turn back a couple of chapters to Revelation chapter 12. Revelation chapter 12. Now, of course, this also brings up a lot of good questions about, where did Satan come from and so on, and we're not going to answer those questions here tonight, but here is another job, here's another duty of angels. In Revelation chapter 12, we are told about Michael. Now, Michael is an archangel, and so Michael and his angels, well, they fought against someone and his angels. Revelation 12, beginning in verse 7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. Now, friends, who is the dragon? Satan. We're going to find that out just 2 verses later. But the dragon here is Satan. And so they fought against Satan, and the dragon fought and his angels. And so Satan had angels as well. And prevailed not. Who didn't prevail? Satan didn't prevail. Satan and his forces, if you will, didn't prevail. Neither their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, and deceived the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And so another purpose, another duty, another activity of angels is that they waged war. Well, it was also angels who were the horsemen that drove the fiery chariot. You ever heard about the fiery chariot? Well, that's an Old Testament story. That fiery chariot took an Old Testament character from earth directly to heaven. And who was that? Elijah. Took Elijah. And so the horsemen were angelic beings. And so notice what we have discovered here. Okay, so they are not only ministering servants, as we have been talking about, but they also guard. They guard the tree of life. They guard the gates of heaven. They are also soldiers who have warred against Satan and his forces. And they have driven the fiery chariot that brought Elijah to heaven. But is that it? Is that all that they do?
They protect.
Okay, they protect. Yeah. Really, we're probably just scratching the surface of everything that the angels did. A little while ago, go ahead.
Before God made the world, did God have angels in heaven before he made the world?
Okay, they were created beings, so they were created at some time. They could have been very easily created before the earth was created. We're not told exactly when he created them, just that they are created.
Satan, he was one of God's archangels.
Okay, he was certainly an angel.
And
Yep.
he tried to take God's place, correct? That's why Michael and his angels fought against him?
He tried to take more power than what he thought that he had.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's what led to this war in heaven. You find out there in verse 8, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any, what? M-O-R-E. More in heaven. And so his place was no longer going to be found in heaven. And so he too was a created being. He too was a created being. And so now he has been cast out of heaven. A little bit ago, Sister Janet said they are messengers. Well, let's kind of go with that a little bit. They are messengers. In fact, the idea that I want to share with you here tonight that we are taught from the scriptures is that they are messengers who were sometimes sent by God to do what to the wicked? Okay, to forewarn the wicked? Okay, well, they went to forewarn, but what did God sometimes do with angels to the wicked? Punish them. One of their many jobs was to be sent to punish or to destroy the wicked. There is a case, okay, let's talk about what Sister Carolyn mentioned here. There is a case in which the angels were sent to destroy, but before they destroyed, they warned. Can you think of that particular occasion?
Sodom and Gomorrah, they told Abraham that they were going to destroy it.
Okay.
And kept, talking to him if there's 100 or 50 or 25 or 10,
Okay,
we bargained with them.
okay. Who else did he warn? Lot. He warned Lot. Okay. Six. I didn't hear him, and I don't think I want to hear him, and so we're just going to go on. Mr. Cherubone. He warned Lot a lot, okay? I don't know that we can actually say that, but he did warn Lot. Okay, so where did Lot and his family live? Where did they live?
Gomorrah, Sodom.
Sodom. Okay, now what can you tell me about Sodom?
It was evil, an evil city.
Okay, it was an evil city. Turn to Genesis chapter 12. Let's see what we find out here in this particular chapter concerning, Genesis chapter 13. Genesis 13:13. Let's notice what we're told here about Sodom. About Sodom. 13 and 13. In fact, we'll begin reading in verse 12. Genesis 13:13. Everybody there? Okay. Abraham dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain and pitched his tent towards Sodom. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. Okay. What does that phrase exceedingly tell us?
They were really bad.
They were really bad. They sinned greatly before God. And that's really the idea behind the word exceedingly in the Hebrew. They were great sinners. In fact, if I remember correctly, that's what the Hebrew reads. That they were great sinners before the Lord. So much so that God was going to do what? He was going to destroy them. And so he sent the angels in the form of men. Because what form were they when they met with Abraham? Do we know? Well, Genesis chapter 18. Genesis chapter 18, notice what we're told in verse 16. And the what? Men. And the men. So what form were the angels in? Okay, they were men. Remember what we said this morning? If God so desired that they be seen, they could be seen. And they could be seen in whatever form God so desired. And so here they were in the form of men. All right. Now, were they in that same form in chapter 19? We have to say, yeah, they were. Yeah, they were.
Because they went to Sodom.
Okay, they went to Sodom. in the first part of chapter 19 and verse 1, we read this. There came two angels to Sodom. Now, what form were they in when they met with Abraham? They were in the form of men. Okay. So, there came two angels to Sodom at even. And so they came to the city. All right, now, where was Lot? Okay, he was sitting at the gate. He was sitting at the gate. Now, let's just use a little bit of common sense. Why would Lot be sitting at the gate? Why? Okay. Could there be another reason he sat at the gate? What time of the day was it? At what? Even. And so it was when? Huh? It was at the end of the day. It was at the end of the day. Verse 1, there came two angels to Sodom at even. And so it was the end of the day. Why would he be sitting at the gate at the end of the day?
Did they guard the gates at night? I don't know.
Was he guarding?
Waiting on the angels.
Okay, he was waiting on people. Do you think maybe he was there to stop people from going into this city because of how sinful it was? What did he do with the angels?
He took them to his house.
Okay. Why would he take him to his house?
He was giving them a safe harbor.
He was giving them safe harbor. What did you say, Dave?
I said keep them safe.
To keep him safe. Okay, so notice verses 2 and 3. 2 and 3. I'm sorry, 1 and 2. And Lot sat at the gate of Sodom, and Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face towards the ground, and he said, Behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall arise early, and go on your way. So come and stay with me, and you can get up early, and you can be on your way. So what do you think he was doing here?
Trying to protect them.
Trying to protect them. Trying to protect them. Did they accept his offer?
Not at first.
Okay, not at first. In the latter part of verse 2. And they said, Nay, but we will abide in the streets all night. Is that something that Lot wanted to happen? No. And so he pressed upon them greatly. Okay, what do you think is meant here, pressed upon them greatly?
He insisted.
Okay, he insisted, he really encouraged them, he exhorted them to come and to stay with him. And so they turned in unto him and entered into his house, and he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. And so they came to his house.
And that's interesting too, that they just ate the same as normal people do.
Okay, they ate the same as normal people. And so they ate. How soon after this did the city raise, my terminology, its ugly head?
Well, it must have been pretty soon, because it said before they laid down.
Before they laid down. Okay, now what does that mean, before they laid down?
Before they went to bed.
Before they went to sleep. And so before they could even go to sleep, what happened? The city rose up, and the men came to his house, and what did they say?
They wanted the two men to come out,
Okay. They wanted the two men to come out so that they could what?
have sex with them.
Okay. The phrase here is so that they could what? So that they could know them. Okay, now I don't know if everybody heard what Steve said, but he's right. This was not in a friendly way. Well, come on out and we'll play cards or something of that nature. That was not in a friendly way, but it was in a sinful way. We have here, in verse 5, that phrase, that we may know. That whole phrase comes from a Hebrew word which means to know carnally. Now, what does carnally mean?
Intimately.
Okay. You know, I looked that word up in the dictionary. And this is another one of those words that I just hate how the dictionary does it. They define the word by using the very word. They define carnally as to be carnal. Okay, Alexa, what does carnal mean? Well, carnal means fleshly. So they wanted to know these men, not in a friendly way, but they wanted to know these men in a fleshly way, in a sinful way. The International Standard Version, as well as the Easy English, there's two or three other translations, but the International Standard Version reads like this: bring them out to us so that we can have sex with them. And so what Steve said is exactly right. They wanted to know them in a fleshly way.
It amazes me too, that both young and old, and they came from every quarter. And so it was
Okay.
a bunch of them.
They came from every quarter. What's that mean, they came from every quarter?
That means it came from all around town.
They came from all around town, north, south, east, and west. They came from all points in that city to where Lot lived. Okay, and so they said, send them out so that we can know them. And so Lot steps out. He opens the door unto them and then shut the door after him. And what did he say to them?
He told them that he has two daughters that has never had sex.
Okay.
Make them.
Okay, and that's true. Now, what did he say to them before that? Verse 7.
Them not to do such a wicked thing.
Okay, don't do such wicked things. The King James here reads, brethren, do not so wickedly. The New American Standard, do not act wickedly. Don't do sinful things like that. And so he then offered them, and this is once again my wording, but he offered them an alternative. And what was that alternative?
His daughters.
Okay, his daughters. Did they accept that? No. They did not accept it. And so they pressed against him. Verse 9. They said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came in to sojourn. He will needs to be judged. Now we will deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man. The man's who? Lot. So what does it mean here that they pressed sore upon him?
They were pushing him against.
Okay, they were pushing him. They were pushing him up against the door so much to the point that what was close to happening?
The door was going to fly open.
Okay, the door was close to breaking. But then what happened?
The angels reached out to grab Lot.
The angels reached out and they grabbed Lot. They pulled Lot into the house. They shut the door and then they smote. They smote the men. Now what does that mean? They smote them. Did they strike them? Hit them?
They caused them to go blind.
Okay. The word smote here does not carry in this place that idea of hitting them, but it carries with it the idea of stricken them. And so he struck them, he stricken them with blindness, caused them to go blind. He smote them. Okay. He smote them and caused them to go blind. Now, after all of that happened, and we told you that whole story, that whole background, to get to this one point. They had just pulled Lot into the house. Notice what the angel said to Lot, beginning in verse 12. And the men said unto Lot, Hast thou here any besides, son-in-law, thy sons, thy daughters, whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. For we will destroy this place. For we will destroy this place. What are they doing here? What are they doing here? They're warning. They're warning of the destruction that was about to come. And who was going to do the destroying? They were. They were. Verse 13, for we will destroy this place. Continuing reading. Because the cry of them which is waxen great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord have sent who? Us to destroy it. So what was the purpose of angels?
To warn.
They warned, and they were going to what? They were going to destroy. And so one of the jobs of angels is to carry out the judgment of God upon the wicked. Upon the wicked. Now, let's look at another example. Let's go to 1 Chronicles. 1 Chronicles chapter 21. Chapter 21. Now here in 1 Chronicles, chapter 21 in verse 1, we are told Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David. What does it mean that he provoked David?
Usually provoke is to make angry or,
Okay. Is that really so much the case here, that he made David angry?
I don't know.
Well, the word provoke here means to entice. Okay, to entice, to seduce. And so he enticed David to number Israel.
Yeah.
He enticed him to number Israel. Did David fall for it? Yes. There in verse 2. Now, why he decided to number Israel, we're not really told here. I believe it's E.M. Zur who said that perhaps it was because of pride, and that may have been.
Just show how much I got.
Okay, here's what I've got. Okay, and so he went and he had all of Israel numbered from Beersheba to Dan, and he had the number brought to him that I may know it. But how did God react to this? How did God react to it? Well, go down to verse 7. And God was displeased with this thing. Therefore, he did what? He smote Israel. So was he pleased with David numbering Israel? Where should have David's faith and his trust have been? In numbers?
No.
Where should his faith have been? Should have been. Should have been in God. But he put his faith in numbers. Here's the number that we have, and God was displeased with that. So much that, go ahead.
It's similar to Eve. Okay, here comes Satan.
He's suggesting, he's provoking, he's enticing. And that's exactly what he did with Eve. He enticed her to eat of that tree. Okay, so God was displeased with that. And so what did he do? Well, we read down in verse 14 that the Lord sent a pestilence upon Israel. Now, what's a pestilence? It's a plague. He sent a plague unto Israel, and how destructive was this plague? 70,000 men died because of this plague. But what else did God send? Well, let's begin reading in verse 14. What'd you say, Dave?
In verse 15,
He sent an angel. So the Lord sent pestilence upon Israel, and there fell of Israel 70,000 men. God sent an angel unto Jerusalem to do what? To destroy it. And so God was sending an angel to carry out his judgment upon the wicked. David had sinned in some way. And so he sent an angel. Now let's just go ahead and read the rest of 15. And God sent an angel unto Jerusalem to destroy it. And as he was destroying, the Lord beheld and repented him of the evil, and said to the angel that destroyed, It is enough. Stay now thy hand. And the angel of the Lord stood by the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. And so he sent an angel to destroy, and he changed his mind. But he sent that angel to carry out his judgment. Is God ever going to do that again? Is he going to send an angel to carry out his judgment? 2 Thessalonians. Okay. Chapter 1. Christ with angels in flaming fire taking vengeance on them. Turn to something that Jesus said in the book of Matthew. Matthew, the 13th chapter, the 41st verse. Angels are going to be sent again to carry out the judgment against the wicked. Matthew 13, beginning in verse 41. The Son of Man shall send forth his what? Angels. And they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and they which do iniquity. What is iniquity? Evil or violation of the law. And so all of those, and he's going to gather them out of where? His kingdom. Hello. Going to gather them out of his kingdom. All those who offend, and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. Who's going to do that? The angels. He's going to send angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend and do iniquity, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire, and there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. So, what do angels do?
A lot.
They do a lot. They carried out God's judgments, and they will once again carry out God's judgment.
Well, I always find it interesting, as soon as he said stop, they stopped.
And they stopped. Yeah, they're in 1 Chronicles. As soon as God said stop, the angel that was destroying, and notice he was in the midst of doing it. The angel that was destroying stopped when God told him to stop. All right, we are out of time. We want to extend the invitation. If we have anyone here this evening who needs to come and to make things right, if you have yet to obey, we encourage you to do so here tonight. If you have obeyed but you have erred in your faith, why not come and make things right? Why not come right now? Why together we stand and we sing.